Hello, and welcome to Lachine Institute. Again, these are two books which have run the world, so to say, for the last 2,000 years or so. And this is the first of many, many hundreds of videos where I'll be setting out on a path to find God. And my attempt to finding God is very plain and simple. I'm not an expert. I'm not a scholar. I'm not a proponent of anything. I am, at best, a rationalist, and I will be approaching all these religious texts from the perspective of a rationalist lay person. And I'll be reading them, and I'll be understanding them, and I'll be analyzing them, and I'll start with the Quran because I'm a Muslim. And right after that, I'm going to come to the New Testament. Then I'll go to the Old Testament. Then I'll go to the Gita, the Vedas, and I'll cover all the religious texts because religion is something I'm extremely passionate about. In this attempt, what we're going to do is we're going to see if people are actually willing to communicate, because religion has ended up dividing the world in huge sections. Countless wars have been fought on religion, and I think it's time that we engage in dialogue, which is not emotional measuring of sticks of whose God is bigger than whose. I love God. I love all paths to God. That's why I love physics. That's why I love religion and theology. Thank you, Brad Wolf. I will come to your comment later, but we are going to start with the Holy Quran, and today's session is not going to be very long, but let me put to you a very simple question. I am 34 years old. The Prophet of Islam, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, who, for the sake of all these videos, will be called Muhammad or Prophet Muhammad, he was 40 years old when the Quran was revealed to him in the beginning through the Prophet Gabriel. And he learned more and more, and he became a prophet and a leader. But he was only 6 years older than I am, and I've been wondering what he used to do when he was my age. So try to put yourself 1,500 years ago. We didn't have all this, so try to put yourself in his mind. I'm 34. He was my age, and he's looking around, and he says, "You know what? I'm a successful merchant. I have a good business going on. I have a wife. I have children. I'm well respected in my society, but I'm not happy. I'm still not satisfied." And this is true for all accounts of him. He was always wondering where things came from. Who created these things? What is this pen? What is this tree? What is this leaf? What's the root of this flower? And we've seen great men across history go down this route of achieving the basic things in life and then start wondering, where did this all come from? And they can either go in science or philosophy, or in this case, religion. And this is something that we've seen throughout history. And he used to wonder this. But try to imagine, whether you support Islam or not, whether you find it barbaric or peaceful, whether you find it a religion that is not suited to the 21st century, that is not even the discussion. We will get to that discussion much later. But try to imagine, you're 40 years old, so just 6 years older than I. I'm quite fit. I'm quite healthy. My brain is still in my control. My mouth is in my control. I can deal with all of society. He has daughters. He has a loving wife. He has a thriving business. All of it is going on really well. People in his society really respect him. They say, "Oh, he's truthful. He's authentic, X, Y, Z." Why then, at this age, was he driven to sit in a cave in the middle of the night? So there's a theory of critics of Islam who say he might be going epileptic, he might be schizophrenic, and that is something that I will address later. I have great answers to that, and I welcome people to have that discussion because I'm not emotional about it. I can have that discussion with anyone. But let's put that aside for now, and let's discuss a man with a great family life, a great social respectful circle, great business, in good health. Why is he driven to go to a cave in the middle of the night and just pray to something? He doesn't even know what he's praying to, what he's looking to. Um, why would he be pushed to do that? This is something that no scholar or no religious authority has been able to answer for me. And I asked this from everyone. If he was so successful, why was he driven to that? And the answer is he had achieved the things that we have to achieve in life, but he wasn't really happy inside. He wasn't satisfied. And that in Sufi conversation, we say that his cup was increasing in size. That is a terminology that we use. And I think that is what was actually happening. He had achieved all the basic necessities one man particularly has to achieve in this day and age. And I don't think he had political ambitions, or we don't have any history of him discussing political ambitions. But then he's sitting in a cave. I would like anybody who's watching this live, or anybody who's watching this later, or anybody who watches this years later, to come to me or come to yourself with this answer. Why, when you have everything in life, are you sitting in a cave away from your home in the middle of the night? So, my contention is this. I live alone. Nobody bothers me, thank God. But when I'm around family and I want to think about something, my mother says, Ali, do you want dinner? Oh, yeah, sure. And my concentration is broken. And then I'm wondering, where did this flower come from? Where did this tree come from? I need answers. And somebody calls me. And my business partner calls me, or my wife calls me, or somebody from the society calls me, from the neighborhood. And I'm distracted. So I stop thinking at home. I go under a tree and I sit under a tree and I start thinking, maybe I'll have some quiet time to really focus and to really find the answer to why things are here. And I don't find the answers. I'm distracted again. There's so many things happening. So I isolate myself. And in that time, we didn't have padded rooms. We didn't have all the noise cancellation headphones. We had to literally go to a cave. So in the middle of the night, he went to a cave and he was sitting there quietly and he was wondering and he was praying to something that he didn't know and he didn't see. And then came the book. And I have this wonderful interest in Gabriel and his story. And hopefully one day I'll write a novel about it because I find him to be a fascinating character. But what was revealed to Prophet Muhammad in his first sitting, which was by any measure of the imagination, a horrifying experience. Imagine you're sitting in a cave. You've been sitting in the cave for years and just worshiping or praying or trying to find answers. And suddenly you hear a voice. Either you're going crazy. That's a discussion that we'll have later. Or there's somebody actually there. And you wonder, whoa, what's actually happening? What's happening? And you hear something, and then before you know it, the angel is there, and the angel embraces you, and the angel enlightens you, and you run out of the cave full of fear. And the story goes that wherever the prophet looked, he saw Gabriel. He looked to the sky, and there was Gabriel and everywhere. Imagine that. We've tried to replicate that feeling in movies, and we can't do it. But even in movies, it is a horrifying experience that wherever you look, you're seeing the same thing. Imagine that happening in real life. I equate that to Moses parting the sea, or the burning bush, or the Mount Sinai, and so many other great experiences that people have had. Imagine that happening. And he went home and he was shaking, he was shivering because he'd gone through that experience. So I look at Islam from this perspective. There are many people, many philosophers, thinkers who've come after it. I couldn't care less. My Islam starts and finishes here and on the Prophet's life. I look at this book and I can read this book just as well as anybody else can. So I'm going to read it. And imagine you're 40 years old and you are wondering, who created all this? Where did all this come from? Can we ever find an answer? I've asked everyone I know and nobody's answering me. There's no Wikipedia, there's no Google. What do I do? And then a voice tells me and embraces me and says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, read in the name of your Lord who has created all that exists. So in the first sentence that Gabriel spoke to Muhammad, he is answering his question. For years, Muhammad is thinking, who created this? Where did all this come from? I've achieved everything I need to achieve in life. Where did all this come from? And Gabriel comes and says, read in the name of your Lord who created. So I have two questions, Mr. Gabriel, on this. Read what? And what Lord? I don't know about a Lord. Is this one of those idols that we worship, that people worship here, or is this something else? I don't know about this God. Is this a natural God found in Gaia, Mother Nature? What is it? Read in the name of your Lord who created. And what is interesting is that the verse says in the name of your Lord. So there is a possessive capacity associated with God. God isn't separate from us. He's not away from us. At least that's what I believe. Read in the name of your Lord who has created all that exists. And then the next one goes, he has created man from a clot of congealed blood. So the name of the chapter is Surah Alaq, which is the first chapter, which means the clot of blood. And before you start thinking about flowers and trees and woods and mountains, let's start with you. You're a man, you're a human being, we know who you are. Do you know who created you? Well, there's this Lord that we've heard of, and he creates, and you, in his name, you must read. And he has created you from a clot of blood. And you're like, huh? I didn't know I was created from a clot of blood. And now, obviously, scientifically, we know that is a verified statement. But that at that point, 1,500 years ago, in the absence of Google and Wikipedia, we didn't really know that. So he is answering his question. Who created? Well, this Lord created, and let me tell you something, he created you from a clot of congealed blood. What do you think about that, Muhammad? And Muhammad says, huh? Wow. Well, that's, wow. I mean, if somebody came to me and it wasn't even an angel, and the angel didn't even hug me and enlighten me, even to make me think along those lines would be enlightening. I'd be like, huh, I never thought of things that way. Okay, wonderful. Read in the name of your Lord who has created. He has created man from a clot. And then the third verse. Read, and your Lord is the most generous. So now I know two things about this Lord. One, that he's creative. So he creates things. He created me, and he created all that exists. But two, he is most generous. So far, I'm kind of liking this Lord. He's very creative. He's artistic. He says, oh, there's a mountain and there's a world. But he's also most generous. What is he generous about? Let's find out. So the fourth verse goes, who has taught by the pen? He has taught man that which he knew not. These are the first 5 verses that were revealed to Muhammad. So far I know that there is a Lord who is very creative. He created everything. He created man. The second thing I know is that he is most generous. And the third thing I know is that he taught man. He teaches. So he's creative, he's generous, and he's a teacher. So far, I'm really liking this Lord. And then the question that comes into my mind is on verse 4, which is, who has taught by the pen. I'm thinking, what is this pen that he talks about? I haven't heard of any pens. What pen are you talking about? And then obviously your brain, if you are designed to think this way, Prophet Muhammad, you will say, where did this flower come from? Where did this tree come from? Where did I come from? And this unknown, unseen voice, which you see later, is answering you, well, you come from here. There's this Lord. He's generous. He's a teacher. Read in his name. He is a creative person. He's a creative entity. And he has taught you by the use of the pen. So now if I'm predisposed to question everything, my next question would be, what pen? I've never heard of a pen. Is it the pen that I have at home, which I dip in ink? Or is it something else? And this is where it stops. Because for a layperson who's just a merchant, married, children, happy life, happy wife, happy daughters, well respected in society, to be told all of this light and truth is an incredible burden. I can't bear it today, knowing all the information that we have. Imagine if you're sitting in the dark at night and something speaks to you, you're going to run out of your room. That's exactly what happened. Prophet Muhammad ran out of the cave, and everywhere he looked, he saw Gabriel, and he went home and he started shivering. And we know the story. But two things remain. Number one, there is a Lord who is creative, generous, and he teaches us something. And number two, what is this pen that you talk about? I'm curious to know what this pen is. Can I buy it from the store? Do I have to make it myself? Is it dipped in ink? Is it written in different colors? Thank you. People are commenting. I don't want to share so many of the comments, but Brad Wolf, thank you. And Alam Khan, thank you as well. People are commenting, but I'd like to stay on point because I have another meeting. But think about it. Think about it. If you are predisposed to question existence, what will the question be? If I say to you, there's this Lord, he's creative, he's generous, and he teaches you with the pen. And you're like, okay, so there's a Lord, and I know three things about this Lord, but what is this pen? I know nothing about this pen, which is exactly why. See, this is why I love the holy books, because then you come across, what was it? Chapter 68, wasn't it? Yeah, chapter 68. I don't know if you can read this, but chapter 68 actually says the pen, which is Surah Qalam, which I'll discuss next Friday. But this is how you open somebody up. This somebody who's just questioning, and there's no PhDs that he can do. That even Oxford or Cambridge didn't exist at that time, so you couldn't even move to the UK and enroll in those schools, take a ship a long ride. But at that time, he couldn't do those things, and he's just wondering, what? Okay, so there's this Lord that I've heard of from this unknown voice, and wherever I look, Robert Berry, I love you. Thanks so much for tuning in. But there's this Lord that I've heard of, and he's creative, he's generous, and he's a great teacher. Okay, he teaches me by the pen. What is this pen? I need this answer, and I'm going to tell my wife, and I'm going to tell my best friend, and I'm going to tell my cousin that I heard this voice. Am I going crazy? Am I going crazy? This is what I would think now with all the information overload we have. What would the Prophet think 1,500 years ago? We are stopping here today because we're reaching the 20-minute mark. Next week on Friday, we will recap chapter 1, and I'll start with chapter 2, which is the pen. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're offended by anything, come right to me. Let's discuss it. I'm not going to take anything down. This is religion. This is God, and God belongs to me as much as he does to you. So if something bothers you, I'm happy to engage in discussion and debate and uncovering the truth together. Best of luck. Have a wonderful weekend.